Tell Zubair. One minute. You stay here. Tell Pandu.
Hello, everyone. A very warm welcome to all of you. Good afternoon. I am Arohi Tyagi, Associate Dean here at AAFT Online. And I, on behalf of the entire AAFT Online family, welcome you all to this webinar on sustainable fashion. And what could be more exciting than to have with us today Mr. James Ferreira? Well, Mr. Ferreira is a celebrated Indian fashion designer known for his innovative draping, fluid silhouettes, and sustainable practices. Based in Mumbai, he has over 4 decades of experience and is regarded as the pioneer of contemporary Indian fashion. A graduate of Sir J.J. School of Arts, James has been instrumental in bringing Indian craftsmanship with modern aesthetics. He is renowned for reviving traditional crafts and textiles while promoting eco conscious designs. His collections, showcased at prominent events like Lakme Fashion Week, highlight timeless elegance and inclusivity. James has also contributed to Bollywood costume design, including films like Zubeda, and has mentored aspiring designers. A strong advocate for sustainability, his eponymous fashion label reflects his minimalist yet bold design philosophy. Recognized with numerous accolades, James continues to shape the Indian fashion industry with the fusion of heritage and modernity. So, without further ado, let me welcome him here. Hello, sir. How are you doing?
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon.
A very good afternoon, sir. It's an honor for us to have you here with us today.
I really do love teaching, and for me, the most important thing is sharing my knowledge with as many people as I can. And with my years of experience, I think that for me is the best thing I can do today is at least try and shape the young minds of today to think of a future which at present, which is not looking very good and it's very bleak, but to try and bring rays of hope to it.
Absolutely, sir. And to all the learners, all the attendees who are attending this session, you have this golden opportunity to ask your questions to Mr. Ferreira. And in case you want to ask your questions, please put them in the Q&A box, which is located right below on your screens, and I'll be taking them up at the end. So, sir, we are all ready. We're all ears for you to begin.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Today I decided to speak about sustainability because I think that is the most important aspect of fashion today, especially when we look at the terrible place the world is in. We have, through all our different ways of trying to become more exciting, we have really adopted a lot of and a really too many practices which are detrimental to the earth. We have already massacred the earth, and it is really sad to see that today all of us are trying to do fast fashion, and you know, we are more into fast fashion than what we really should be doing is going back to the past. For me, sustainability is going back to the past because it is there in the past that we really cared about what we were doing. Fabrics were treated like gold. We made use of every piece of fabric. Now, if you look at a traditional paper pattern, you will see that all of our garments, our traditional garments, were cut with one piece of fabric and with zero waste. And how did fashion begin? Fashion began with a piece of cloth. So the most modern and the best representation of sustainability is our sari and the way we drape all the garments on our body. Whether it's the lungi, the dhoti, the sari. I mean, there are 109 ways of wearing the sari, out of which we just practice a few. For me, the most beautiful thing would be going back to the past so we can then make the future much better than what it is today. The biggest problem today is the fabric itself. One of the cheapest fabrics and one of the best, I mean, the most available fabrics in fashion today is viscose. Now, viscose is destroying 120 million trees a year. So we really need to step back and think about, are we going to be the problem which is causing the earth to be destroyed? Or are we going to try to do things which will make the earth a better place to stay in? Sustainability is not something which is only pertaining to India, but it has to go through the worldwide today. For me, it's a bit scary when I think that one of the major players of the fashion world is bringing in Shein. Now, Shein is one of the worst, and it's banned. It's the worst problem with fast fashion. And today, when you look at how AI is adding to this and creating, like I was just reading that there are some, Sheen is adding something like 800 new styles every week because of AI. And they are being produced in the cheapest and in the most toxic locations. The most important thing for us is dignity. And that's what we need to give all of our people and all the players in the industry. When we think of fashion, we only think of us, the designer. But do we ever think about the people below us who really make this whole thing possible? I mean, our karigar and all the people, all the people we have who we depend on. Now, when I look at fashion today and I see the amount of garment schools and textile and fashion institutes opening all over India, it's a bit scary because are we training the backup staff? Are we training the tailors? Are we training cutters? Are we training embroidery people? Are we training the people who will make this industry what it has to be? The designer is just an opera conductor. But to make music, the opera conductor needs a whole team of musicians in front of them who then he conducts. So now that's the same with a designer. We need to see that we have brilliant staff at our disposal. We need to see that we train our staff to do things in a particular way. When I started designing clothes about 40 years ago, I started to design with just one seam and zero waste out of necessity. Because At that time in India, gents' clothes were always very well made. Because when you look at after independence and when you look at what people wore, the men still wore the trousers, the shirts, the safari suits, the jackets, which were the legacy of the Raj. While the women went back to wearing their saris, their salwar kurtas, their churidar kurtas, their traditional garments. And that is what had happened in the time when I started. There were no people, tailors didn't even know how to put a dart. And I think that is very important today when we are looking at an industry. We need to see that we have right in the beginning a, a staff around us who understands and knows what we are doing and is part of the whole design process. Now, when you look at fashion and when you look at sustainable fashion, what we really need to do is good quality fabric. And I think, again, going back to natural fabrics in the world today is the most important thing. We have found out through latest studies that polyester and all these other synthetic fabrics are really bad for us and for our bodies as well as our health. So today, when we come from a land which is the cradle of textile, I think we need to go back to our weaving center. I think we need to be sitting down with our weavers and with textile designers and trying to bring back the past glory of our country. I have been teaching for the past 35 years, and recently I started teaching the the artisans in Kutch. And I was so pleasantly surprised because they really do have an understanding of what fashion is. Today, when I look at the college students and when I look at what all of y'all are doing, very few of y'all want to get involved with cutting and tailoring. And I think that is the most important part of fashion is to learn how to cut your own garment. Because the cut is the most important thing. I mean, good tailoring cannot save a badly cut garment. So, whether you have the best staff available, the most important thing is how you cut that garment and now you do your paper back. And that is what I feel is the most important thing today is to learn how to be a master yourself. Because, as you know, we are not training anybody to do the jobs we expect them to do. Most of the tailors and most of the masters are learning on the job. And the more experienced they are, the better they become. But can you imagine how easy life would be is if you had total control of your workshop where you had to cut your own garment? Sustainability is a lot of recycling, reuse, repurposing, and that is what something with the rich heritage which we have and the most beautiful old vintage fabrics which we have. I think that is another very important part of being sustainable is going back to the past, showing using all our beautiful textiles which we would have thrown away. For me right now, I do a lot of cutting of saris. I cut old saris, especially those which are no longer on there, are no longer wearable as they are. I do understand that some saris are too beautiful to be cut, and it would be a sin to cut some of them because those are the most beautiful pieces of heritage which we preserve. But there are so many available at the thrift stores where we can take and where we can repurpose. I think one of the nicest brands which has come out recently was I Was a Sari. And I Was a Sari was started by an Italian guy. He wasn't started by an Indian. We need to look into our past, and we need to really first be proud of from where we come. And if we are not proud of where we come from, and if we do not know where we come from, how can we represent our country internationally? Today, internationally, a designer from India has to come with Indian aesthetic. A designer from India is not somebody who is going to be cutting an Armani jacket or a Vivienne Westwood dress. We need to bring our Indian aesthetics into our design. And by bringing our Indian aesthetics into our design, we also realize the beautiful ways and the beautiful practices and the frugality of our nation. We are the most frugal people in the world. We have always recycled. We've had recycling of tins, of bottles, of old paper, of old garments, which has happened right from before we were born. Today, now suddenly, the West is opening up to recycling and all these different things, which we have always done. Indians hate throwing things out. So after a sari has usually passed its wearability, a lot of ladies take the saris and make it into dharis, into sanitary napkins, into patchworks, into such beautiful things where we make use of every scrap of fabric. We need to start firstly thinking of fabric as our gold, as our treasure. And we need to start loving that fabric and not wasting any part of it. And that is what is going to help us to be sustainable design. To be sustainable again is not giving into faddy fashion, into fads, into what is going to be the next fashion statement for next year. To be a good fashion designer, I think we need to do clothes which are classic, which are contemporary, and which are forever. For me, the most exciting thing is clients who have bought my garments 30 years ago would still come up to me and say, I still use that garment and I am so fond of it. And sometimes they bring the garments back to me just because something has gone a bit wrong somewhere, or the fabric is dyed, the dyeing has gone bad. And we always try, I always help and I always try to make them use that thing again. Because for me, when a person comes back to me after 30 years and says, I'm still using that garment of yours, means I have got what I wanted and I have attained what I wanted, a classic silhouette. So, our most important thing with sustainability is to creating classic contemporary silhouettes which are easy to wear. And the most important thing for me is pure fabric. I think, especially in a country like India where it is so hot, synthetic fabrics really cause a problem. I cannot wear synthetic fabrics because as soon as there's something synthetic on my body, I get a rash and I'm allergic to it. And I feel that has helped me. And as a designer, I am not one of the top designers in the country today. My name is not anywhere around. So for me, I've had to practice sustainability only to keep alive. I have used garments. I have done a whole collection out of scrap. You know, I've taken all my scrap. I collect all my scrap. I hardly throw anything out. And I once did a whole color block collection, which was made of all the old small pieces of fabric left before. This year, I have used all my scrap to make a Christmas tree and a Christmas star. And I always keep doing things and I always try. And then I take all my fabric scraps and I shred them and I use them to stuffed pillows and cushions. So, what we need to do and what we need to learn when it comes to sustainability is to learn to go use a very good quality fabric which will last as long as your design is there. So, it is a classic when it comes to fabric, and it's a classic when it comes to cut. So, once you've got those two, the most important thing, of course, is your fabric. Invest in good fabric. Invest in a little more expensive, in a more beautiful fabric because it will last forever. The best fabrics today are the hand woven. And we have so much of beautiful hand woven fabrics in our country. The biggest, and actually, when you think of what hand woven, handmade is, hand woven, handmade is couture because couture means to make by hand. And today, a couture garment is 40% machine, 60% hand. In India, we can offer the world 100% couture. We can offer them the most incredible handmade fabrics, khadi, and things which we have. Actually, what has happened in India is that we have marketed khadi and handwoven as a cheap fabric for the common people. It's always in these maidans, in a khadi fair. It is never put into the place where it belongs because khadi is made by hand, and that is the highest form of fashion in the world. And when you look at what our ancestors did, the way they created garments which would drawstrings, like the way we use a drawstring and not a fixed waist. So as you grow, your ghagra also grows. The saris, the cholis, so many cholis have got that back stringing. Again, that's a place, a way to know that your sari is going to go, your choli rather is going to go and is going to grow along with you. So the most important thing when you're designing is to think of ways where you can then your fabric can then expand and contract. And I think the Indian practices of drawstring, the Indian practices of the choli tying, the sari, these are the most sustainable practices in the world. And when you look again, I'm only talking about India, but you look at Africa, you look at a kaftan, you look at a kimono, you look at, whatever the first fabrics, the first garments ever designed by humans. Because how did fashion start? Fashion, fabric was always the prerogative of the very rich people who can afford it. And when you close your eyes and when you think of how an Egyptian princess or an Indian princess or an African lady or one of the senators' wives from Rome or Greece or anywhere in the world, they would be there. They would first be bathed by their staff, and then their bodies would be anointed with the most beautiful oils. Their hair would have been done. And then these ladies stood while people draped fabric over them, tied it around them, and made those incredible classic silhouettes which are till today relevant. So I think relevance in design is the most important thing. Today, fashion has become a lot into oversize. Everything has become oversized, everything has become comfortable. And today, fashion is more about being comfortable with yourselves and comfortable in what you wear. Today, a fashionable lady is not wearing something from the latest couture collection. A fashionable lady is a lady who can take out her beautiful Dhakai voile sari or the the beautiful printed silks which we have, and wear that with another very interesting ways. And we need to now go back and find out those 108 ways of wearing the sari, the 48 ways of wearing the dhoti, and learn from these. This has to be our inspiration if we want to be truly Indian in our design. We should not be looking at international fashion shows and copying what the West is doing, because the West is catering to a totally different climate. And when you look at what the West is doing, they have a whole fashion industry which is going along with the season. And every season, the textile industry, the accessories industry, everything works together to create a certain look. We still don't do that in India. And actually, when you look at the fashion shows, especially the couture collections of what is happening today, if you put those collections into black and white, and if you just muddled up all of them and put them any way they come, you wouldn't be able to make out which collection comes from which year. Because we still depend heavily on in the wedding, especially in the wedding market, on the work of our karig. You take away the embroideries from all these ornate embroideries from all these costumes being made, and we still come back to that same ghagra choli which was made by our great great grandparents. So, as much as we should keep the spirit of tradition alive, how do you, as a designer, make that piece yours? How do you put your signature onto that garment so that when anybody wears that garment, somebody can say, oh, that is a garment by so and so designers. And this is what we are losing today in repetitiveness and with copy. Everybody is trying to copy, and then we have this whole thing of when one designer creates a certain style which is marketable and doing very well, then they start churning out the same thing. They're too scared of taking risks. And again, we also have a population which does not like to take risks when it comes to wearing garments. They would much rather go back to something where they were comfortable in rather than wear something which is a bit unusual and a bit different from what the rest of the market is doing. How do you, as a designer, start your career? How do you, as a designer, make yourself felt and noticed? I think the most important thing is you need to look like a designer. You need to start making your own clothes first. Create a style for yourself, which is only yourself. Do not become a clone of anybody else. And I think the most important thing for all of us is to ask questions to ourselves to know who we are. A lot of times we are different people for different places. And I think that is a big problem when it comes to being able to create designs which are yours. You need to, when somebody comes to you and asks you from where did you get that design, you can say that I did it myself. And that's the way you start building up your client. You start by being an inspiration yourself so that people would want to come back to you to get what you are wearing. I teach in a lot of colleges, and I find that you'll very rarely think about yourselves, and every day you should be going to the college looking like a fashion designer. When I go to colleges today, I feel all your students look more like science graduates rather than textile designers. Sadly, jeans and t-shirts have become the norm. Sadly, no, very, very few people want to wear a dhoti and take the trouble of creating this beautiful dhoti with a t-shirt. And I think that is the way we need to be going. I think we need to be going back to the past rather than rejecting the past. What has happened is that the transition from rural to urban has been so fast that a lot of us want to forget where we come from. And I think that is the biggest problem. We need to go back to our past. We need to be finding out about ourselves. We need to be finding out and researching about our family history and all of that because we are from where we come. And I think that is very important to know that. I started using traditional textiles in 2005. And when I first made my collection, I used the gamchas, the Bengali little half lungi. A lot of my very, very few Indian clients bought that. And their whole thing to me was, oh my God, how can I wear something where the gamchas are used? There is so much of attention to what the fabric is, the workers outfit. When I was in my Sholapuri blanket, I created the most beautiful jackets and trousers. A lot of my a lot of my clients used to use it. Why? Oh, my on a Sholapur blanket. So we really want to be something we are not. And that's why we are losing the essence of ourselves as designers. And that's why we are losing the essence of being from this beautiful country which has given the world everything and so much. There is no other country where the handwoven industry is as vibrant as ours. When I go to the hand weaving centers like uh, Kutch and Maheshwar and Orissa to see the e-cuts, it's insane. Our fabrics are so beautiful. And then when I look at the designers, now we all know about what happened with the Olympic costume, which India did for the Olympics. It was a viscose fiber, which in the end cost nothing more than 30 to 40 rupees a meter. And instead of doing that beautiful woven e-cut, they printed an e-cut, a digitally printed e-cut sari. So this is the way we are now going to kill ourselves and are going to kill our whole industry only so that we can have big quantities. And I think that is going to be a big problem today is because so many designers have sold out to cooperation. And now the whole thing is going to be beating the prices down. So if you look online, you can get outfits which are from 500 to 700 rupees. I mean, and when you look at fast fashion today, it shocks me because when I went to Paris and to London about 14 to 15 years ago, and when I go to Paris and London today, I can buy a t-shirt about half the price I had bought at that time because of fast fashion. And you can see fast fashion and the landfills and the biggest problems which we are creating by the amount of clothes we are making per second. And these are the things we need to think of when we are going to be designers of the future because we are responsible for the world we are going to be living in.
Thank you so much, sir, for such a
Is there any?
wonderful.
I'd love to now go into answering
Yeah,
questions if there are, and that way then we can talk much more about sustainability and everything else.
sure, sure, sir. So we have many questions coming up, sir, and I'll be taking them up. But before I do that, I want to tell all of you who are attending this session that we at AAFT, we have an online diploma course in fashion design. And if you want to learn all those nitty-gritties about which sir was talking, like how to cut, how to draw a pattern, you can learn all of that from the comfort of your homes in this 1 year online diploma program with AAFT. And in case you want to learn more about the program, you can give us a call or you can drop in an email at this email ID and we'll be happy to get in touch with you. All right, sir. So let me begin with the questions. And the first and the very common question which I can see here is that can sustainability and pricing go hand in hand? Can we make sustainable fashion more pocket friendly also?
Of course we can. And I think that's when I spoke about using and reusing and repurposing things like that. By repurposing and re and changing something and making it new, that is the most sustainable way and to keep your price down. Today, I always go to the vintage markets and I always look for beautiful old fabrics which I can then put into my garment. Like I would buy a vintage sari in the Bhangarwalas or at Chol Bazaar for something like 3,000. Now, if I have to buy that same sari in a shop, it would be something like 30,000. Now, a lot of the times, the fabrics are frayed, the fabrics are frail, and there are so many beautiful ways we can strengthen that. Fusing is a very easy way of doing it. You know, fusing a softer fabric which is on its last legs to give it strength. Then there is the quilting, which we can do. And I feel what we really need to do is to create a whole load of people around us who can help us. In these cities, there are so many of these ladies who are looking out for work where they can do hand finished garments. And I think by going and re-looking at your workshop and deciding, oh, we don't really need so many men working. We can also give work to the lady. And it's really funny because, you know, the ladies' embroidery, when you look at embroidery, there are two types of embroidery, Ari and Zardozi. Now, Ari is the sort of embroidery which is stretched on a frame, and then the men sit in front of it, and with the needle and the threads, they do the Ari work. Zardozi is also practiced by men, but Zardozi is basically where the lady catches her garment in her hand and she embroiders it, and she's doing it while she's multitasking, cutting her vegetables, cooking her food. In between all of that, the lady is doing the Zardozi embroidery. So we really need to think of how we can, in so many innovative ways, we can bring our costs down. So for me, the most innovating way was to get rid of so many seams. Because the more seams there are in your garment, the more structured it is, the more likely that your garment is going to fall apart easily.
Right, sir. Thank you for answering that, sir. And another question which I feel is commonly coming up is Jyoti is asking this that how do we use natural fabrics and cultural ornamentation in a contemporary way so that we stand out differently?
To be able to do that, we first really need to how to cut our traditional garment. I think what really frightens me is that most of the big colleges do not train Indians to cut Indian garments. I know that NIFT is practicing the FIT method. Pearl is doing the Notting Hill School method. Marangoni is teaching the Italian method. Modak is teaching French. But we are not teaching our students to create Indian garments. I think it's very important that you all need to get the book, each one of you need to get the book of Indian textiles and Indian patterns from the museum in Ahmedabad. The what's it called? The Sarabais. The Sarabais have started this museum, Asha Sarabai. It's called the Museum of Fashion and Indian Fashion. They have a very beautiful book, which is about 4,500 pages, 4,500 rupees. And there they show you photographs of all the traditional garments. And at the back of the book, they have the paper pattern. So the most important for us is to learn about our past. And it's only when we learn about our past that we can take the past and use the past as a stepping stone for the future. So the technique of cutting a churidar is bias cutting. Now, when I went to college, when I was learning about fashion, when I was 16, 17, I was taught in all the books that bias cutting was invented by Madame Bionnet in 1920. But the churidar has been bias cut by the Mughals from the 16th and the 15th century. When you look at the salwar, the center of the salwar is a cowl. Now, the cowl, according to fashionistas, was made in one of the international, like Paris or London, where they have the cowl dresses and the cowl skirts and everything. But the technique of cutting the cowl comes from the center of the salwar. So we really need to look. Now, when you look at our choli is the blueprint for the bra. So for me, and now today, when you look at the sort of fabrics they are making inner garments in, we need to be thinking of how we can go back to our past to be able to make better and more garments which suit us better and garments which suit our climate so much better than what the polyester bras and panties available today. So today for me, I always tell my students, especially my girl students, is make use of the choliwalas who are living around you. Go and make a choli because I do know that when they take measurements of the cholis, they take at least about 20 to 28 measurements, but that is a made to order bra. There's nothing more beautiful than to wear a simple cotton choli instead of wearing a maiden form polyester bra. So I think we need to rethink and relook at what we are doing, especially with ourselves and in the way we dress. We need to say now, why are we doing this when we have a much better alternative and a much healthier alternative, which we have thrown away and forgotten? When I think of how we really need to be taking all our master karigars, our cutters, the sherwani cutters, the choli cutters, and we need to be bringing them to schools where we can learn from them before those crafts are dead forever. In the pursuit of aping the West, we have lost so much. And that is what we need to cultivate in ourselves first. A proud, be proud of who you are. Be proud of your heritage. Be proud of from where you come. Because that is what is going to shape you in the future. Okay?
Yeah, thank you, sir, for answering that. Another question which we have is that, you said that viscose is not a good fabric which we are using these days. So any alternatives which you could give to viscose which can have the same kind of a drape or flow which viscose gives us? And from where can we, I mean, many of the learners are asking from where can we purchase these kind of sustainable fabrics?
The handwoven centers are making the best fabrics today. I have been pushing for the past 5 to 10 years for the availability of hemp. Hemp is the most sustainable fabric because, firstly, the water consumed by hemp is one fourth the water consumed by cotton. When you put hemp into your field, you are purifying your field in 1 year. Because if you do, because of the pesticides in most of the soil, it's very difficult to get organic fabric and organic cotton. And now, if there is one field which is organic and the next field which is using fertilizer, then that's dead. So we really have to start thinking about what other base fabrics are there available in our country which we can adopt rather than cotton.
Right, sir, get that
So
perfectly.
I think we really need to be concentrating on hemp. I know that there is in Bombay, there is Bombay Hemp Company, which is a startup by Ratan Tata. And what has happened with India and hemp is that the quality of hemp we use is only good enough for packaging and for jute and for rope. For fabric hemp, we need a better quality, and what Bohico has been doing for the past 10 years is importing the Mongolian strain of hemp, which then can is easier to make garments of. So we really need to be thinking of hemp as a fabric because it is much cheaper.
Yeah, that's absolutely. Thank you so much. Shravya is asking that what is your take on can we promote upcycle fabrics as well, and do they also come under the sustainable fashion?
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. I've always used upcycled fabrics. See, there's a lot of repurposing. Now, if you know what is happening in Kandla port, what is in Gujarat, a lot of the dead fashion, the fast fashion, there's a lot of ships which is bringing it into Kandla. Now, at Kandla, there are these huge factories which first wash the garments and then sort it out according to color and fabric. And then these things are remade into yarn, into different things. And there's a lot of very interesting things. We really need to start keeping our ear to the ground. And as fashion design students, I always tell you all, today you all are so lucky. You all have got Google at your disposal. You know, I think it's really very important before you go to any of your classes is to Google about what you're going to be studying so that you have questions to ask when you come to class. I have been teaching for 40 years, and the most frustrating thing is the lack of questions people put to me. Today, the internet is the greatest leveler. Whether I come from Paris or whether I come from London or to Bombay, I'm getting the same internet you're getting in Pune or Bhopal or in Lucknow. So today, knowledge is really available to everybody, and I think we need to be making use of all of these things to be able to really, really gain as much knowledge as we want. I think what is very sad when you go to college is that no person has done any research on the topic we are going to be teaching that day. And I think that is very important as a designer is researching your topic. Today in India, there's very little research and development happening. And I think that is very sad. I think we really need to go back into researching everything in our countries so that we can understand everything better.
Agree with you, sir, on this one completely. Ria has a question, and she's saying that she has a small business, which is a tie and dye business, and she uses chemical dyes because she has had experiences where she's used natural dyes, but they fade away much faster, and only a few people choose to come back and get it re-dyed, even though she gives it like for free. So her question is that what is more sustainable, to use a chemical dye and create garments which last longer, or use natural dye, sacrificing longevity of the garment?
It's also the way you treat your garment after you have bought it, which is very important, and that way your natural dyes can use a lot, can last a much longer. But yes, when it comes to dyeing, I think chemical is much better rather than natural because of the color fastness and also because of the colors which you can do. But very importantly today is that there are a lot of new techniques of dyeing which are now coming out and are being now innovated and upon. There is a company called Tukatech which does, the machine does everything from the dyeing of a fabric to the printing of a fabric to the cutting of a fabric, all computerized and all put on the computer. Now, that way, we really need to be thinking of different ways, and there is a certain, when it comes to organic fabrics and certain sort of dyeing and everything, we really need to make our customers well aware right in the beginning that this is the problem which is going to have, and if you don't mind it, that's okay. But when it comes to dyeing, I agree that digital is fantastic and it can really give you a brilliant prints which you could never ever get before. And chemical dyeing, but only you have to be responsible of how you treat your water after it is being dyed. Now, when it came to viscose, besides the viscose destroying 120 million trees a year, the water released by viscose into the earth is contaminated. And we need to be also responsible for that. Now, I have been working with a company in Surat which is cleaning the water using natural plants. So I feel we really need to be upping our game by doing more research on how we can stop the problems which we are creating. And how do we find answers that would make the problems a much better way to go ahead with?
Absolutely get it, sir. So Lavanya has a question, and this is that is sustainable fashion, I mean, can sustainable fashion lead to less production and affect the fashion industry in a negative way? That is the question.
I don't think it will affect the fashion industry in the negative way because I think really as consumers we need to be more responsible in our buying pattern. I think what is very interesting in the West is the way they buy their clothes. In India, we are so used to buying a set, a salwar kurta set, a sari choli set. So we don't have to think about mixing and matching. I think when you buy clothes, the next time you go to buy an outfit, we really need to be thinking of, will that outfit look good with whatever I already have in my wardrobe? So should I buy that blouse because it goes so well with the skirt I bought last year? Or would that dress be a better option rather than buying, some three other dresses? I think, I don't know, but I feel it may bring a negative effect on fashion today, sustainability, but then it is all very good for what is happening in the world today. So to buy less and to buy better quality, which will last longer, is to fashion. And if we have to, because when we look at the amount of garments which are being made every second in the world today, and the amount, I mean, if you look at the landfill, I mean, we waste so much, and that's so un-Indian. We were taught from the time we are children to be frugal, to make use of what we are to the most of its abilities. And I think we just need to go back to that and be more responsible. And if yes, sustainability is going to affect fashion so that there's no longer fast fashion available, I think that would be a better thing for the world today.
All right, sir. Thank you so much for again answering that. Shruti has a question, and this has been asked by two, three more learners that they have always believed that cotton is the most sustainable fabric. And now that you've told that hemp is like a very good option, can you suggest more options when it comes in the category of making nightwears? And also, is silk a sustainable fabric?
Now, even when it comes to silk, there is the silk which is the pure silk, and then there is the ahimsa silk. So I am actually at present working on an ahimsa silk production line where I don't know if you all know what ahimsa silk is. Ahimsa silk is airy silk which is made in Assam, and those silkworms do not feed on mulberry; they feed on castor, and the and it's called ahimsa silk because the butterfly is allowed to eat itself out of the cocoon. So what in the traditional international, I mean in the traditional old way of making silk, what they did was take the cocoon with the pupa in it and boil it, killing what was inside, killing the butterfly inside. But in that process, what happens is that you're left with one long strand of silk, which makes it easier to weave. But today, with the amount of technology, etc., happening, airy silk is becoming much more easier to make. And silk may not be so sustainable because it is only for festivals and for some evening clothes and everything. Silk is an evening fabric. It is a formal fabric. It is the wedding fabric. It is your evening dress fabric. I mean, it's not your silk shorts to wear during the day. Cotton is fantastic. Hemp is even better. There are a lot of new blends being coming out into the market where they are using. In fact, yesterday somebody came with plant-based lingerie fabric. So the lingerie was made out of aloe vera, they made it out of wheat. They're making it. They're pulping it and using it with celluloid. So then it becomes a better fabric to wear against your skin rather than the polyester.
Got it. So I think now the learners have a lot of
And
options.
also, and when it comes to even when it comes to you can have soya fabric today. There's soya fabric, there's milk fabric, there's rose petal fabric, there's fabric made out of water hyacinth, there's fabric made out of lotus.
Even
Yes,
banana, I've heard. Banana.
banana is very old,
Yeah.
and pineapple too.
Yeah, pineapple.
Pineapple traditionally was made, the pineapple fabric was always made in the Philippines. But now there is a lot of very beautiful new fabrics available in the market using such innovative and sustainable practices. So I feel the most important thing for all of y'all is to just start reading and going onto the internet and absorbing what is available in the world today. I find that we depend too much on our schools and our teachers to gain knowledge. But we really don't understand that we have knowledge on our fingertips today with the internet. So even before you go to your next class, please go prepared with a few questions so that the teacher herself feels that she has a class who is interested. You know, that is very important. Learn to ask questions, all of you all. It's only when you'll ask questions that then we ourselves are pushed to think, and that's why I love teaching, is because your questions make me think, and that's when I learn more. And never ever think that you've learned enough. Because till the day you die, and as soon as you think you've learned enough, that's the time you have become a zombie. When you stop thinking for yourself and when you think that you are the best. We can never know, have enough of knowledge. Knowledge, I mean, there are too many things in the world which we will never know about. So, curiosity is the most important thing for all of you all to survive and to create beautiful clothes. Ask questions, go onto the net, find out the incredible, beautiful things happening when it comes to fabric, when it comes to so many different practices. Even when it and one more thing is when you're looking at fashion, don't look at fashion with a tunnel vision. What happens is we tend to let our obsessions or our careers, we do not think beyond that. But to be able to be a good designer, you really need to think 360 degrees. Because it's only the rest of the world and it's only the problems in the world which are which is making fashion what it is today. So be inquisitive, ask questions, learn about, do a lot of research. Research is what is going to make you a better leader. You know, that is the most important. Okay.
Absolutely, sir. I think that was wonderfully answered. And to all the learners and attendees here, I would just want to tell you that, in case you want to learn more about fashion, you want to broaden your horizons and have that 360 view, you can enroll with us in this online diploma program in fashion design, wherein we get to have so many experts with us, like Mr. Ferreira himself. And in case you want to know more details about this program, you can give us a call at this number or drop in an email to us, and we'll be happy to connect with you and answer all your queries related to the course. So once again, Mr. Ferreira, thank you so much for such a wonderful and such a interesting session which we had today. It was an absolute honor and privilege to have had you here with us today.
My pleasure. And anything you need, please don't hesitate to call. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good day. Bye bye.
Bye.